Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'm a marketing specialist here at Educate 360. Welcome to today's webinar, Collaborating Through Meaningful Influence, presented by our instructor today, Dr. J. Pugh. We are using Zoom for today's session, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with you in an email after the webinar. We do encourage participation throughout the webinar, so please use that chat or Q&A option for our short Q&A portion throughout the presentation. Alrighty, Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today, and without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Dr. J.
Thank you, Mariella, and welcome everybody. I want to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to make their way in. In the meantime, I do want to mention a little bit about our program and what we do for the Center for Leadership and Development. My role is as I serve as our vice president of the program. I oversee a lot of the curriculum, the delivery that goes with it. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. I do have a PhD in this area. Doesn't always make you credible, but in this case, I think it probably helped a little bit. I've been in the leadership experience for about 8.5 years now, and I've been teaching and training for closer to about 17 years now. I'm an author in the space of engagement and influence. That's something I'm very passionate about. And I am also a hashtag girl dad. I have 4 daughters, and I can feel that through the screen already. So I do have 4 daughters. 2 are adopted, 2 are biological. All of them give me gray hairs, and all of them are loved. So that's just a little bit about me. And so that's my experience in leadership. And I always like to give that as a 1-minute overview as we dive in. I want to kind of ask a question right out the gate to you all. And I want you to think about leaders that you have worked with, that you have engaged with, some that maybe weren't so well. I want you to think of it. What qualities existed when it came to people that had leadership qualities? What were those leadership qualities that they had? I want you to type those in the chat for me if you can. What qualities were different than, say, for instance, traditional leaders? So I'm seeing empathy right out the gate. Loving this. Listening and empathy. They engage proactively. Leading by example, I'm seeing. Honesty, integrity. I like that Emily mentions this idea that they cared about me as a person. It wasn't just a cog in the wheel. And I like that Davielle mentions that they were honest about potential. They really said, here's where we think you can shine. Here's where we think you can grow. We're seeing that they were personalized. They were authentic. They're nurturing. They follow up. They guide. They show this understanding of integrity and compassion at the same time. So I would agree with a lot of this. Didn't micromanage. They provided trust. I love that from Lisa. I think that that's a really great one. They were champions. I agree with that. They were great listeners, humility. They almost didn't have this understanding that position is how they led. How many of you would agree with that? Throw a thumbs up or a reaction if you can. If that's sort of the understanding is they didn't lead with position. They led with their personal abilities. They led as human beings. I love the way David said that. Their stripes didn't matter. It was really more about their qualities and their characteristics. And that is a huge component when we talk about leadership versus management. One of the things I always say is that you manage tasks and you lead people. And so if you lead people, and Dana brings up a really great question, where's the heart in today's leadership? Heart is found in typically a few different ways, and we're actually going to dive into that. And so I want to share a little bit of this journey with you over the past hour on how we ourselves can ensure that when it comes to leadership, it is human-centered first. It is people-driven first. And we're going to talk about ways that we can do that. So I love what I'm seeing. Amazing participation right out the gate, by the way. Loving this chat rolling in. So as we go through this, there's a few things that I want to stress when it comes to leadership. There is positional power, and then there's personal power. Now, I will tell you that in our cases, what ends up happening, and I love Lorenzo says, takes care of inspiration. There's involvement. Huge. Positional power sources, traditionally speaking, and I'll do this if you can, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you are, let's say, Gen X or more experienced, And I asked this for a realistic question. I always say the cutoff of that is closer to about probably 40s or so. And the reason why I bring this up is because there was a change in the way leadership worked and in the way influence worked. And I love seeing that there's quite a mix here, right? There's some thumbs up and thumbs down. I love bringing this up because the way that leadership and influence has really changed because of the way that we lead. So, number one, think about 25 years ago. 25 years ago. If you weren't happy with your position, what was the likelihood you just found a new job tomorrow? How easy was it to find a job back in the 80s, the 90s, getting to the early 2000s? How easy it would would take months, not easy at all. It was a real challenge for people because jobs were localized. The world wasn't as accessible with the ages of Google and everything else. And it was taboo, Cindy, in a way that if somebody did leave, this was almost frowned upon. So the reason why I bring this up is because when we really talk about positional power, forget a work from home job. Exactly. The whole thing shifted. So what that meant for leadership is they could lead more positionally. They could leverage their power through position. They could say, Cindy, I need this done by 5 o'clock. Daniel, this needs to be taken care of. Set this as a priority. This deadline is Thursday by 2. We need this done. There was allocations, right? And so because of this, legitimate power was basically what we say top-down communication. It was very much, you weren't heard or necessarily super valued. It was really just, I tell you to do what you need to do. You need to get it done. Now, in today's workforce, there still is a need from time to time to push deadlines, to make sure things get done. And David brings up a good point, and don't ask why. See, there didn't have to be an explanation back then. And so this is typically ways that leaders have traditionally led others, is through legitimate power, through rewards. Now, I got to be honest, I'm sure we all like good rewards. We like compensation. We like getting paid. Absolutely. Those are big things. But has anybody ever heard of the story of cake in the break room? Cake in the break room. And if not, you can give me a thumbs down. No worries. And we're here to learn. Excellent. Okay, wonderful. The reason I bring this up is because with rewards, there is a challenge with rewards. And what that challenge is this. I want you to imagine that we're all back in the office together. We all work together and we're all back in the office. And the first thing that happens is HR brings out cake in the break room, right? Pie in the break room. We're going to add that in, Chandra. We're going to have cake and pie in the break room. And some people are going to be like, all right, I'm in. I like where we're going with this. Sounds great. And HR goes, man, what a great hit that was. You know what? Let's do it again tomorrow. And day 2, there's cake in the break room. People are like, cool. All right. Yeah, it's kind of nice. Yeah, I could probably have cake again. And Ryan brings up the point of the day is when it comes to rewards, special things are special because of their infrequency. Because of their infrequency. So when you overflood with rewards, 2 things happen. Number 1, they become stale. Just like the cake in the break room on day 11 and day 14 and day 22. And the second thing is Jennifer just mentioned, which is absolutely on point, is they become an expectation. Because you know what happens? The day that they pull the cake from the break room, you know what they're going to say? We don't even get cake anymore. And so, Cindy, great one there. And so that's the other thing is that rewards sometimes don't get personalized. And so we got to be careful about how we use rewards. And so where we go into this is I want us to understand that rewards used to work a lot in that case, and now they're not as meaningful in the past. And that's a huge point. If that there are not rewards, Robert, then there could be people taken for granted. So you have to leverage rewards as opportunity driven and find those moments. You can't overuse them. Number 3 is coercion. This is known as the stick, right? Many times people think management and leadership is about using the carrot or using the stick. Are there times to where coercion may or may not need to be done as a last resort? Yes, there are times to where if it might not be a fit for an organization, or if somebody's really struggling and, look, we really need to make sure that we're getting the job done that we need to. We are paying you to do something, you need to do it. Sometimes that has to be the case. But if you only lead with coercion, people will leave, and they'll leave as often as possible. And Daniel brings up a good point about the rewards and coercion. Notice that these two things almost become tangible solely to the job itself and not to something bigger. And that's going to be where we get to. The last one is resources. And here's the thing. Resources are a great thing. But number one, resources are finite. They're finite. If you lose the resource and you relied on that resource the entire time, guess what? That resource isn't there anymore. And now what do we have to rely on? The second thing is that resources can come with what they call as manipulation. Because if they know you're the person that has the resources, guess what? They're going to tell you whatever they want you to hear. They're going to kiss up and tell you whatever you want to hear to get that resource. So these 4 used to be things that people relied on 20, 30 years ago, and now they're not as effective when overused. The reason why is because the world became much more accessible, became much more global, and people started realizing that the job is not just about the job anymore. It's about the purpose, the people, and the process in which we do things. How many of you would agree with that? Love this. Love this. Excellent. And so now, because of this, what ends up happening is that we shift this direction, right? And yes, there's a thing, Dana, that we can do, which organizational goals are very important, but they also have to align to a vision that our people believe in. Our people got to see it, feel it, and believe it. And if they don't, they disengage. They disengage. So that is a huge piece here. Now, when we say, well, if we can't use these anymore, what do we use? What do we use to make a difference? And so now there are 4 sources that are known as personal power sources that are much more effective. They last a lot longer, and they don't just build compliance, they build commitment. There's a difference between complying and committing. And so I want you to think of these type of leaders that you have. How many of you know that one person in your organization that they are the true SME? They are the subject matter expert. They know, not only do they know, but they always have this desire to learn more. And your boss, your leader could be one of those people. That's a huge thing, is being an SME is not just being the person that knows everything. It's about knowing how to use it and what else to learn. And so it's not about, well, I always say this when it comes to expertise. If you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room. That's something I truly believe in. So when it comes to expertise, it really goes into this understanding of they're constantly trying to look for the next thing, the new thing, the important things that's going to help others thrive with expertise. And that's a huge piece is, look, it's okay. It's okay to find that new room, to grow in those capacities. So, but that is something we can always do, regardless of whether we have 3 years or 30 years. Can we all focus on growing our expertise in areas? And Sadie, they use it, they share that knowledge in a way that's going to be mutually beneficial. I love this. And so this is where expertise is an important thing. Now, Ryan mentioned another word that came in, which is engagement, right? And Chandra, exactly right. It's not just saying you're the SME. It's SMEs don't even say they're the SME. They're normally the people that know, and then they're constantly looking for new information. They are active seekers and learners. Number two is, how many of you know that person that, man, when they speak, you could listen to them all day long? They're highly engaging. Their messaging is on point. You believe them when they say things. They know exactly what to share, what not to share, when to share. They're very solid in that case. And see, look, and there we go. This is what we call information. This is your ability to critically engage others, to truly make sure that you have this ability to guide, to direct, to generate meaningful motivation. And that is something where, if I were to rank sort of where I sit and what I really work on, it would be information. And I'll give you an example here. By a quick thumbs up or a thumbs down or me, a meme or whatever it is, how many of you are enjoying this so far in the first 15 minutes? You've learned some good content so far. Okay, so content. All right. Here's why I bring this up. If I delivered this webinar like this for the next 40 minutes, you all would be on point still, right? Because the content is the content is the content. Bueller. See, and now you see the thumbs up shifting to thumbs down, and that's the exact right. And that's where information comes in, ladies and gentlemen. It is your ability to bring energy and delivery to the audience. It is your ability to engage. That is a key thing. That is a huge piece here. Jennifer brings up a good point that she says one shouldn't go to an SME just because they have the information. I always say that SMEs do a really good job of sharing where to get information rather than just saying, here you go, because they can become the doormat. Really good point there, Jennifer. I could agree with that. Information, though, is your ability to deliver with purpose, passions, and really make meaning and bring words to life. That is information. The third one, this is where we talked earlier about empathy, active listening, support, kindness, right? Referent, the ability to be referent, is your ability to not just persuade, but really to build high trust relationships. It is more personal in those cases. It is more human to human. It's almost like we take off all our titles, we take off everything, and it's just me and you. And that's where the relationship begins. This is where referent capabilities come in. These are the people, how many of you know the person that, man, when you need to vent to somebody, they are there. They won't even give you solutions. They will just listen. They will understand. They will empathize. They will be amazing supporters in the approach. How many of you have that person? That's being referent. That's being referent. And what's really funny is when you build these three out, what starts to really happen is you grow this amazing network of people. You grow this amazing network, and you become this person that to some, you might be the referent person, and to others, you might be the SME, and to others, you might be the engaging person that comes into play. So I want you to think, out of these first three that exist, these first three, what do you think you really shine at? What do you think people see you as really influential? Do they see you because of your expertise? Do they see you because your information, your ability to generate and share meaningful message and delivery? Or is it your ability to build high trust relationships through support and kindness and empathy? What do you think your go-to is? Loving this. Very good. Loving what I'm seeing here. And we do, Ryan, we have a smattering of all of it. We really do. What ends up happening is, and we're going to talk about the doors of persuasion, right? Which, if you've ever heard of Aristotle, right, you know that there is your doors of persuasion that people can connect to. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. I will tell you that there's typically one that I'm naturally stronger with, and I would probably say that would be information. And referent, not that I don't care about people. I promise you I do. I do love people. I care about people, but I'm not always the softest in approach. I could be stronger with not giving solutions or just making sure that I'm listening to listen. So this is where I would say this is my go and this is my grow. Go means it's natural. I can do that in my sleep. Grow means this is something I want to work on a little bit. Not that I can't be, but it just takes a little bit more. So I love bringing this up because when we talk, and Robert, that's where knowing yourself and how you're influential is really important. And that's why we have a whole course dedicated to it, literally called extending your sphere of influence. And it's huge about really understanding what is it about you personally that makes you influential, and then bringing that out and understanding it. And when you use effective uses of power, what ends up happening is it's much more meaningful. It has a much longer term effect, and it builds longer term commitment and not compliance. So that's why we use this. Now, it leads me to this next thing. When we look at others, and I agree with that. No is easy to say. Finding something else that can be done with it, that is the true positive assertiveness that exists, Ryan. I like that. When we talk about anticipating the audience mindset, what I really mean by this is that I can't assume that what is clear to me is clear to others. Now, you certainly do not have to answer this. You do not have to. I always like to make sort of this question of, if you all are married or you have a significant other, this is going to be marriage counseling for you for just a moment. And so bear with me on this. The reason why I bring this up is I've been married for almost 15 years. I've been with my wife for almost 20. And I will tell you that I've run into traps at times to where she has been upset about something. She has been frustrated about something that has to do with work. One example was that her computer needed a reboot, and it needed to reboot several times, and she couldn't get her work done. So I could do one of two things. I could say, if you actually hop on Sunday night and you run it that way, it'll be ready for Monday morning. But if I do that, dude, what's the likelihood that she says, look at you go, you're the world's greatest hubby? Slim and none, and Slim just left? Right. And so because of this, what I need to do is assume that what is clear to me is not clear to others. And so in this case, Jennifer brings up a really good point. I ask people how they want to be listened to. I understand what it is that is really important to them. So what I do is I go from my here to their there. This is from Mark Goulston, wrote the book Real Influence, huge piece of this. I don't just walk in her shoes. I take my shoes off first. I take my shoes off first before walking in her shoes. And I think as human beings, we can do that a little bit more in our space of influence. There's that age-old adage, in order to fully understand someone, you got to walk a mile in their shoes, but nobody ever talks about taking your own off first. You have to remove your own bias or the way that you prefer to be communicated with. So one thing I will say with the marriage side of things, and even in the workspace, what I really pay close attention to is, how do they want to be communicated with? And then I also do pay attention to, well, how do I want to be communicated with? So with my wife is somebody that if she wants to be heard, she just wants to be heard. She wants no solutions. She wants to just understood that there's empathy. And David's right. Their shoes, if you wear both shoes, no shoes fit. So in our case, if she's helping me, she doesn't give me any sorries. Oh, I'm so sorry. I need empathy like I need a hole in the head, as I like to say. Empathy doesn't do it for me. It doesn't solve my problem. And so that's why it's really important to pay attention to how people want to be listened to. The other thing that we can do is find what their values, interests, and preferences are. Folks, if I could give any advice, and this is something I truly believe in sort of the coining of information, if I know what people value, if I know what they're interested in, and if I know what they prefer, we can create much better meaning together. So I'll give some examples. Values. If I work with, and I'll go to Mariella's boss, Tiffany. Tiffany is a go-getter. She is an amazing senior director of marketing, but she is also very empathetic and very kind and very understanding. So in those cases, when it comes to values, her value is empathy and true listening. Whereas if I speak to somebody else on that team that comes to my mind, theirs is get her done. They go to Larry the Cable Guy and they're like, look, if this is going to get it done, let's do it. So that's values. That's what we have to pay attention to. Do they like to work quick? Do they like to take their time? Do they like to collaborate with others? Do they like to isolate and do one-on-one stuff? What is it that they value? Do they value integrity more than intention, or intention more than integrity? And the reason why is I bring that up is we value both, but sometimes there's something that stands out a little bit more. Those are values. We have to understand what our people value. The second thing is interest, and that is as obvious as human possible. We need to make sure that we're paying attention to others, paying attention to what matters to others, what gets people to perk up. The third one's my favorite, is preferences, and I'm going to have a little fun with you all on this one. Ready? I want you to think, has anybody ever heard of the social battery experiment? Social battery. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs. Oh, look at that. I love this. Look at the quick response times. That's letting me know you're with me. Nope, absolutely not. I love the social battery experiment. Now, there's typically, now it doesn't always fall into, it's more of a continuum, but I want you to think of, there's three batteries that exist. Battery type A, and I want you to think of how many times have you had a meeting with somebody and it's just like they're not there. They're not there mentally. They're not here. They're not ready to have communication. Or if you try to schedule an 8 a.m. meeting with them, they lose their minds. See, look, Robert goes to Taylor Swift on this one. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Yes, that's me. No. So I bring this up. And the reason why I bring this up is because we have different social batteries. So ask your team members what their social battery is. Battery type A is like an engine. Typically, these are people that are please let me get my coffee first. Please let me get my day started. Let me get my engine revved up. And as the day progresses, they get hotter and they run pretty well and pretty level. That is a battery type A. They'll run level for that afterward. Look, some people right out the gate are there it is, right? And I like this. Angelica mentions that, hey, in these cases, we shouldn't have 8 a.m. to 9 meetings, right? Sometimes we do this, and this is why I want to bring this up, because when you're having one-on-one meetings, it would be really good to know what it is that they have. So that's a battery A. Now, I'm not saying a meeting for everybody together. I'm saying if you were having a one-on-one with somebody, or if you're trying to connect with somebody, these are going to be important things. Battery B. Battery B. Their battery is like the cell phone. How many of you are the people that when you'll have a 7 a.m. meeting, no problem at all? If you are working internationally, you're like, heck yeah, I'll have a 6:30 a.m. meeting. Let's do it. But then when it gets closer to 2:30 and 3 and 4 and 5, oh man, that battery starts to go. See where we start to happen? So think about a battery A person trying to have a battery B meeting. Are we going to really maximize and connect with people? And vice versa. And no worries. I'm glad you're enjoying Deviel. This is recorded, so no worries. And that's okay. And that's why I want us to understand what your battery is, because then what's going to happen is you're going to reach out to somebody else and realize, oh my goodness, I've been having meetings with people and I'm not connecting with them where they are. And then you have your C battery. So battery A is like an engine, and battery B is like a cell phone. Battery C is like a radio frequency. They don't have to plug in. It is how the frequency is running. And what that means is that you need to check in. You need to check in with people before you meet with them. And I always say that battery C is an interaction-based battery. That's why if you're like, well, look, I'm not really A and I'm not really B, battery C is one that says, if I asked you, hey, how's your day going? And you're like, oh, it's terrible. We're off to a terrible start. I'm going to say, hey, no worries. Whenever you have some time today, I'd love to catch up. It can wait. It can wait. Or if they're riding high and be like, oh man, I had a great day so far. I found a $20 bill on the ground. Things are great. Hey, perfect. Hey, do you mind if I talk to you for a minute? Interaction-based batteries. There is not one Schrodinger's battery. I love that, Ryan. So the idea here is that it's not about, it's about A, understanding your battery, and B, understanding where their battery is. Because that's what a preference is. We also call those peak times and weak times. For instance, if you're scheduling a meeting with me at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm out. My brain is turning into mush. It is turning into mush. So I always say, who's doing the asking? If I'm doing the asking for you, and I will tell you, I have one salesperson and they are closer out on the West Coast and they love a good late meeting. So I will have a 5 p.m. meeting with them because I know that's meeting them where they're at. But if they need something from me, I requested it's earlier. Pretty cool exercise, folks. So these are a few things that we can get into. Now, if you think you're having fun right now, brace yourself because this really gets to it. And I like that, Ryan. So here's the thing. If I know Ryan is definitely a battery A, I am not scheduling an early morning meeting. I'm making it a point that anytime I meet with Ryan, it's going to probably be anywhere between 11 and 2. Ryan, did we just become best friends? He's a perma hold. Oh, coffee time. Good. Good. Excellent. So the reason I bring this up, battery B, Chi, is your battery is great in the morning. You're charged at 100%. You're ready to rock and roll. You're ready to move. You're ready to run. You're like, yes, 7:30 a.m. meeting. Let's do it. And I will tell you, personally speaking, I am a battery B. The earlier, the better for me. But when I'm here and it's 4 o'clock, not there. And battery C is an interaction-based battery. And what that means is that it really depends on what experiences they have. If they're having a tough day, you might want to hold off on when you're having your conversation. So your goal is to check in with them. Hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? How was your day going? That's the empathy component, Rich, that ties in with C. Think of C, think of check-in. Check in first. Sound good? All right. So let's talk about one of my favorite sections that I like to get into. And we're going to rethink Aristotle for a second. Aristotle alludes to this, but he never explicitly states it. And the reason why I like to get into this is because when we go to ethos, pathos, and logos, I don't want us to think. He mentions that there's one door that is our door for persuasion. That there's one that really connects to us a little bit. Oh, sorry about that. That connects to us a little bit more than others, right? In this case, and I would agree, Emily, that introvert and extrovert energy may play batteries as well. So when we get to ethos, pathos, logos, I don't want us to think that if you have one door, it does not mean you don't have the other two. I'm going to say this a couple of times in this little hour. Ready? You have all three batteries. You've all three of these. You've all three of these doors, right? You've all of them. The key, though, is that I view this as something where you have one door 2 doors, and 3 doors. And if person X is standing here and you're trying to connect with them, what doors do you unlock in what order? What doors do you unlock in what order? Meaning, ethos. I'm going to start with ethos. And you're going to tell which kind of door you're going to gravitate to as this goes. Ethos is an integrity-driven door. It is an integrity-driven door. It is purpose. It is mission. It is honesty. I would say almost sometimes blunt honesty. It is, Jennifer. It's Myers-Briggs. It can be the disc wheel. It can be emergenetics. They all kind of tie to this. But this sort of thing is people focus on mission, purpose. It is more about getting things done. It is action, mission, purpose, honesty, integrity. That is the ethos door. Now, in some cases, people value this because it gives you credibility. So I will say one thing. I like to bring this up is how many of you are what we call the Action Jacksons? You don't have to have all the information. Let's just dive in. Let's get to work. Let's get it done. Let's achieve the mission. First things first, let's do it. Who are my Action Jacksons? Very good. Very good. I like this. How many of you are, wait. Can we gather? Right. And I liked it, right? They have, no, not quite, right? So this is why I like to bring this up is because you're going to start to see that there's some doors that will appear. Others will say, no, let's think it through first. Let's slow down. Let's regather. Right? No worries. But that's the first door is the ethos door, which is integrity, credibility, action, honesty. That's ethos. These are the people that if they had a motto, they would be get GSD. Anybody know what GSD stands for? I was going to say get stuff done, Jeffrey, but I love where you're heading with this. Yep. Gets the German Shepherd. Yep. Get stuff done. They are the people that they want action, movement. They want to make sure things are taken care of first. Let's get it done. It is mission, vision, big picture, drive. Let's do it. As long as we do it with integrity. That's a first door. Second door is pathos. Pathos is more in the space of, look, 2 best friends just on here now. So pathos is more of emotions. Now, I don't want you to think of emotions as in tears. That's not what I mean here. What I mean by appealing to emotions is it's humanity. It's empathy, kindness, support, listening. I don't want to say it's softer characteristics, but it is much more people than purpose. To put it this way, it is not about the destination, it is about the journey. So as the great journey, right? Think about this for a second. How many of you are people? You'll notice purpose people are movement, whereas people are, I want to make sure people are okay. Who are my journey before destinations? Empathy, kindness. Good. That's right. And I like that others are like, no, that's not quite my door. That's perfect. And if you're saying at times, it might not be your primary door. It's not your primary door. Excellent. This is what I like to see. Is that what we see here is that there's doors to where you're like, I can do this, or I do have this, but it isn't quite my door. And that's what I want us to understand here is what is your primary door? What is your secondary door? What is your sort of last door that'll get you in? So the first door is ethos. The second door is pathos. And the last door is logos. Logos is about data, evidence, numbers. It is accuracy. It is intellect. It is logic. It is thinking. It is a very process driven mindset. It is about the process. It is reliability in the process. And look, that's where do you notice that now how many of you are starting to catch where you're like, wait, is this my door? This is my door. I found my door. And Cindy, this is a great, if the company culture's logos and some are pathos, the idea is that you really need all three to shine. You need all three to shine. You need all three to shine. So what I'd like for you to do is this is a little bit of an exercise. Ready? Because you do have all three doors. I want you to think about this for a minute. What is, and I'll even type this out as an example here. What are your three doors? What are your three doors? And whenever I write mine, I'll tell you, anybody want to take a guess? And I like that William says LEP. LEPs are processors. Myself, my doors go in ELP. Once again, I care about people, but that is not my first door. I like that I'm seeing LEPs, ELP, PLEs. Look at this. We're starting to see where things shift. I love this. This is perfect. Now, ready for this? How many of you are married to somebody that is, or you might be in a relationship with somebody that is, their door is not like yours? Their door is not like yours. This is where, in the real game of influence, you really have to slow yourself down and ask yourself this question. Are people difficult or are they different? Are they difficult or are they different? And happy Valentine's Day coming up. What a perfect time for this, right? I mention this because I married a PEL. And I say this because what it has taught me is that if I try to focus on big picture things, or I talk about things down the road, or, hey, this is the vision, this is where I see where we're heading. Her first thing is everybody going to be okay if we do? And now what we're going to find is in the workplace or in certain cultures, you need to have all three. And you need to, as the great Ice Cube once so eloquently stated, ladies and gentlemen, if you learn nothing else, learn this. You got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. That is something we need to make sure that we do. Because if I know that I'm an ELP, I'm going to be focused on speed and action. And if I'm communicating with somebody else that isn't that way, it's going to look like disconnect. It's going to look like disconnect. So every time you meet somebody else, think about what their doors might be. And I get questions all the time of, well, how can you pick up on these clues and cues? I will tell you, here's some things that really matter to people. First and foremost, when we go to, no, absolutely not. It's human counseling, Jennifer, because we are big picture. That's where we are, is that we work with people. And so whenever I communicate with this, the big thing in the ethos, right? It does, Sonia, that's exactly right. It creates self-awareness and self-regulation, which is also emotional intelligence. So I really do pay attention. It's really important to meet people where they are. And you do, Gabriel, you got to make sure that you know yourself before you connect with others. You got to know where you are. It's so important because this is where buy-in happens. This is where connectivity happens with others. This is why this makes a difference. How can you tell? Ethos will use believe language or future language. It'll be believe language or it will be future language. They're talking about what something looks like down the road. They're telling you what they believe is going to be a great idea to move in. It's all going to be about forward movement. They are forward language people. Forward language. So belief, future language. Pathos is going to be feel and comfort language. And I don't mean comfort as in like soft. I mean that they want to make sure people are okay with the journey that they're on. They want to make sure that people are comfortable with the movement as they move. And they're going to use more feel language. They're going to use like, well, I feel like this. They're going to use more feel language. And lastly is logos. And logos is what we call think language. They go to logic, they go to think language, and they stay very, very present minded. They live in the now. What is the first step now? Once we have the first step locked, what is the second step? So really use your active listening skills to listen to the language they're using and connecting to. Thoughts, questions, concerns on this? If you're trying to build trust with each of these doors, first thing with ethos on the purpose driven, if that's their primary door, lead by example, model expectations, practice what you preach. That is an ethos principle through and through. Follow through. Follow through. See it from start to finish, and you'll get an ethos to buy in all the time. Demonstrate effectiveness. And what that means is that if this effectiveness is going to hit the bigger picture, if this is going to achieve the bigger vision and mission, that's how it needs to be demonstrated. If you make a mistake, own it. They don't want to hear the sorry. They don't want you to fix it right away. They want you to say the words, this one's on me. I own this. Let's move. I'm owning it now. And the way they prefer to work with people is true autonomy. They want to trust that other people are accountable for what they're doing. So in that case, they want autonomy. They want you to give them autonomy. They are not fans of the check-ins. Hey, let's have a one-on-one. A one-on-one to an ethos sounds a little bit like death. Because the first thing they're going to go with is, you don't trust me to get what I need to done? So that's a huge piece. So that's ethos. Exactly. Exactly. Right. Pathos. For pathos people, do not speak first, ask first. The moment you think you have an idea for them, do not share it. Ask them first. Ask for their input, ask for their ideas, include them on the dialogue, first and foremost. The moment you speak first to a pathos, they're out. Don't check up, check in on them. The difference between that is what are you doing versus how are you doing? Your questions with pathos-driven doors are, how are you doing? Use those body language and active listening skills. They are huge in the body language. Have your cameras on when you communicate with them. If you make a mistake, they want to feel that you are sorry. They want genuine remorse. They don't want you to own it. They don't want you to say, my bad. They don't want you to say, I'm seeing it through from here on out. They want sincere apology. They want that vulnerability. And they are true collaborators. They are the vanilla ices of the world, folks. They are stop, collaborate, and listen. Which to in ethos, think about this, right? How many times have you wanted to collaborate with somebody and they're like, okay, you go ahead and do your part and I'll be over here. That can be where disconnect sometimes occurs. Lastly is logos. If you're going to communicate with logos, give accurate results up front. Accurate results, evidence-focused areas up front. Follow up on resolutions. If there's a problem, just like vanilla ice, logos are a different type of vanilla ice, because if there's a problem, they'll solve it. That's where they go. So follow up on resolutions. They want efficiency. Their goal is to find the most efficient pathway from A to B to C. If there's a problem, they don't need to hear you say a word. They just need to know that you're fixing it. And they're very much divide and conquer. They believe that each person's responsible for their own points. These are things that we can do to better connect with others and create more influence. Believe it or not, Gina, what I have really found so far in a lot of correlative studies, and yeah, I would say L's are a little bit more common than not. Battery A, because they like to rev up and get a couple quick things done and get those done, and they'll rev up to do that. Pathos, more often than not, are C batteries, because it is about how their days go and how their interactions with others have been. So it can be a little bit more wave, because it's more of an emotional driven one. And I would say ethos live a little bit more in a B. Now, that is not a 1-to-1 ratio or 100% correlation. That is just more commonly what we find with the batteries. Final questions, comments, concerns for today, folks, that I could answer. These have been some great questions, highly interactive. I want to make sure the last 5 to 6 minutes are here for you to ask any questions that you feel like you need to ask. Cindy, so there's quite a few out there. I'm a fan of Daniel Pink. I would read some things by Daniel Pink. I'm a fan of Mark Goulston. Like I said, I have works in this space that I'm a real big fan of. So there are several out there that can really be beneficial. And Emily, I love what you just said, right? It's sometimes we feel disconnected because we tell people how we feel and they go, it's not that I don't care how you feel. It's just that it's irrelevant to the evidence that we have here. And once again, that can sound mean on one side and not on the other, but really it's just different doors, folks. Absolutely right. Jennifer asked a really good question of how do you approach an audience and team you don't know very well? I always ask them for their VIPs. How do you prefer your communication? When do you prefer to meet? Start with their VIPs, Jennifer, and ask openly. And I would phrase it almost in a way of, I really want to get to know you better, and I want to make sure that I'm meeting you where you are. That's a phrase I like to use a lot. Sonia, I wrote a book called Conquering the 7 C's. It's about better connection and engagement with others. That is something that I really do believe on. It's more in the teaching space, but I do think it's applicable overall. And Sandy, yes, this is recorded. Mariella can speak to that in just a moment. So she is going to do that. And Ashley, she'll talk to you about the PowerPoints and all that as well. I appreciate the feedback from all of you. It has been an absolute blast. So thank you for joining me on this. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Mariella. She's going to talk to you about sort of the one question little survey at the end. And other than that, I just really, really thank you. Hang on tight for just a moment or two, please.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. J. This was a lot of fantastic info. And if any of you in our audience need any more info on this topic, please do not be afraid to visit us at newhorizons.com. Again, if you missed out on any part of this webinar or just want to go back to our session to get an overview of some of the topics, we will be sharing this recording with all of you in an email after the webinar, so be on the lookout for that. Thanks again, Dr. J.
Thank you, everybody. Take care and have a fabulous rest of your week.
Awesome, awesome. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Bye.